Buonasera, come state? Well, this is a mini lesson instead of hosting a Zoom session these days. Allora, and I'm gonna go over it quickly because the majority of you are doing a good job in keeping up with the material. However, I wanted to, oh, one moment, what is that? Blooper! Okay, allora, I wanted to remind you of the upcoming things in this unit. And this unit packs a lot of punch. There's a lot of material. Well, there's a main verb conjugation in the present, but also the verbi riflessivi and the pronomi diretti a vocabolario del cibo. So all these are important dates. That this is the 11th week right now. We are already in the home stretch, but we pack a lot of material in the last month or so of instruction before finals. So this is the last main unit in the present tense. So we are still in carpe diem mode, meaning we are not caring about the future or the past. We are only using the present tense. That will change in the next unit when we add the passato prossimo. So make sure that you have all these things. And thank you to the people who told me that they are Quizlet so-and-so. Anyway, so some of the messages, the comments, I couldn't see them and I went back and now I can see them, so it's all good. Grazie per dirmi. So, allora, vediamo che cosa facciamo qui. Sì, ora, la terza coniugazione, most of you have already seen this, the difference between the are endings for io, tu, lui, lei, noi, voi, and loro. The ere, right? Everything that was an a, this was an a for are, this also was an a, and a is going to change for ere verbs, and it's not always e, right? It's e, and o. Then for the ire verbs, the only difference between the previous conjugation and the first ire conjugation is this right here. Ere verbs are ete, ire are ite, right? And there's a big list that you have in the quaderno and elsewhere that tells you which are first ire conjugation verbs. So we did this. These are all verbs that are conjugated like the previous slide. Then we did this. People who were in that Zoom lesson, they all did it correctly. And then we added the second ire conjugation. And if you see, these are not irregular verbs. These are also regular verbs, and the endings are the same, right? So a regular verb is a verb that you can, if you are given the formula, you can conjugate all other verbs with a predictable formula without having to make any adjustments or changes. So again, if you know that you have this verb like this, like preferire. Preferire is conjugated here in the second column. So capire is like preferire. So you put cap in front of all this. Capisco, tu capisci, lei capisce, noi capiamo, voi capite, loro capiscono, right? And that's the verb that you conjugate all these verbs here, right? Take out the ire and put the root like finire, finisco, finisci, finisce, etc. Suggerire, suggerisco, suggerisci, suggerisce, etc., etc., right? So all these verbs are conjugated the same way with ish. Keep in mind, if it's noi or voi, you don't even need to worry about whether or not you need the ish because they never use it. Noi and voi. Then this is just a very preliminary list. You have more in the quaderno, and they are repeated in the homework about passato. I mean about the ire verbs. The first page you have a two big list: verbi con ish, verbi senza ish, right? Then we did something like this, and then these are actual irregular verbs, meaning you don't put io veno or venisco, right? Is something completely different, vengo, right? And I put all the changes in red, right? When you don't have a change, this is the way that you would predictably conjugate the verb as if it were regular, right? So nothing here. So the only, in the noi and voi, see a pattern there? When you use the ish, you never use it for noi and voi. And often the changes, not always, of course, but very often when you make changes in the root of a verb, you don't do them in noi and voi. So the only time you do it is in here, diciamo. The other ones is as if they were regular, right? So then we did more of these conjugations, and I'm gonna tell you a trick that works about like 90 to 93% of the time if you cannot remember when to use ish and when not to use it. Ok, allora chiudiamo qui, esce un altro. Don't save. Oh, I thought I had another one. Sì, e poi i riflessivi. And there is something, and I wanted to get into this. Please look at my reflexive presentation if you haven't, right? So this is what you do. You take out un verbo riflessivo, you will be able, if it's not conjugated, you will identify it by the SI ending in the end. But if you take out the SI, it's going to end in ar, er, ir. So if it's ar, you conjugate like alzare. Look at here. O, I, a, iamo, a, te, ano. And then the C here, you actually detach it and put it in the front according to the subject. And remember, come ti chiami, mi chiamo Aned, right? So we were using a reflexive verb on the first week of class. Bene. If you know Spanish or French or Russian or many other languages, is the same thing. Alzar, sí, mi alzo, me levanto, right? You don't say me levanto unless you're lifting something else, right? Alzare will be. So again, example. So when a verb is not reflexive, and I went over all these things in our little Zoom session. So I wanted to show you what I saw in one of your homeworks. So I had somebody, and there were actually 5 people who did the conjugation like this. So if you see here, and is io, tu, lei, right? You know that the exercises sometimes begin in the order of the conjugation. Something is missing here, right? The reflexive pronouns. So it will be mi alzo, ti diverti, si chiama, ci laviamo, vi mettete, si preparano, right? Si sveglia, ci ricordiamo, mi diverto, si innamora, eccetera, eccetera. So here, as you see, reflexive pronouns missing right here. And again, this was not the only person who did it like this. And I want to tell you that before we get into the test or move on. Allora, altre cose che dobbiamo. So if we go here, and I realized not all the links were live, but you had it in the homework. So the next homework, right? So, oh yeah, this Quizlet. Compito dei pronomi diretti. So what you need to do here is, aquí escribe la lettera, right? So you're going to answer substituting with a direct object pronoun, right? I write et to my parents. So, and these are all lo, la, li, and le. So in here, you don't have people like to me, to, right? This always third person. So many cases, this tells you, right? La scrivo. So you would, let's see, I can't really write in here, but I can annotate. So it'll be la scrivo ai miei genitori. Chi porta I regali, right? Look at this I, and then, which one would look like it, right? So li porta Stefano. Chi chiama Gina. I don't know why this stayed highlighted. La chiamo io, right? She's feminine to her. Chi compra le arance. Le compra la mamma, buys them. In Spanish, it will be las compra, right? La llamo yo, los trae Stefano, right? Dove gli studenti imparano l'italiano, right? L'italiano, this is masculine singulars. Lo imparano, however, when the next verb begins with a vowel, you can also l'imparano, right? But only with the singulars, lo and la. If you have li and le, they never elide. You don't put a L apostrophe when it's in plural, li or le, only with lo or la. Okay? Bene, visitate il museo oggi. Lo visitiamo, leggi I libri, no, li leggo, etc. I'm not going to do all of them, but you get the idea, right? Il is going to be lo. But you know, it's not only Sometimes the article for masculine singular is lo, if the word begins with a Z or a GN or a S and a second consonant. And sometimes, like l'italiano, is L apostrophe, if the noun begins with a vowel, right? So it's going to be L apostrophe, il or lo, but L apostrophe can also be for l'università, right? A feminine noun, so it can be la, l'università, la visitano domani, right? So, bene, questo è il prossimo compito, is just one little page, and hopefully it will be clear, or more or less clear. Oh, un attimo. Bene, so così. Pronomi di oggetto diretto. So, gli spaghetti, questo è plurale, right? The answer is right there, li preparo, right? So this is the same. So because masculine plural, masculine plural, the article is either e or li, right? For feminine plural, it's always going to be le. Le ascolto. Sometimes you don't have what you're substituting. Like you don't say, do you eat the carrots, right? You ask, do you eat carrots? Mangi carote. But you look at the ending, carote. Well, not always, right? But a safe bet would be that will be a feminine plural, so le mangio. Yes, I eat them, right? Le mangio quando devo mangiarle. Bene, allora, so questo è tutto. Oh, no, I wanted to show you one other thing before. This is close to you guys still, but this is a little preview. Esame. Okay, let's see what you can expect. Although we are going to have class on Monday, and then I'm going to open the quiz here. So, anteprima, vediamo, right? So, yes, tu dormi con la luce accesa, right? So there are, then here you would, many of them you would type the verb. Sometimes you need a reflexive verb, ci divertiamo molto. When you have two verbs, right? A modal verb, remember what happens? Do you even need to change the second verb, right? It's one action, two verbs, but just one action. Well, that's a trick question. Pulisco mai, right? So some of them are, again, multiple choices, and you see a lot of conjugations, and then you see things like this, right? Where you would have to pre un café. So that is masculine singular. Which one? E poi, people can sometimes be direct objects, right? People are more likely to be indirect objects. Right? I prepare the pizza. What the pizza for my cousin, right? So the indirect object, the one who eventually benefits from the action, is the person, my cousin. But what I am preparing, right? The what of the verb is the direct object, la pizza. Va bene? So in this case, is non mi vedi? What are you seeing? Are you seeing what? Me. And then the person answers, right? The you is the thing being seen, so the direct object. But this is hopefully very easy. The oggetto, so you will have some direct objects. Then you will have, in the last recorded lesson, I had something like this, where you may have the description. It's very similar to the one that I had in the printed version that I used to. So then you may have a couple of little questions to listen to and to write, and then open-ended questions, right? And then I may ask you to write a sentence with any of these verbs, right? Some of them may be like, io non capisco il giapponese. And if you need arrabbiarsi, right, it doesn't have to be you, it could be somebody else, like mio padre si arrabbia quando ha fame, right? And then again, we're gonna do something like this to practice on Monday's lesson. Bene? So that's That's all. Okay. Ciao. Just work on the homework and the oral presentation about the food. Please. Ci vediamo lunedì. So that's all your work. The oral presentation, gli oggetti diretti, and anything that you may be missing so far. Ci vediamo tra poco.